Hello everybody and welcome to another Doctor Who review. This time it's a Fourth Doctor story, the Sontaran Experiment. As always, I have with me the television companion for the classic series stories. Here's the plot line for this episode. The Doctor, Sarah and Harry arrive on a desolate and apparently deserted Earth to discover that a group of shipwrecked astronauts from a human colony, Galsec, have been lured there by a fake distress call. One of their number, Roth, tells Sarah of an alien conducting gruesome experiments on him and his crewmates. The alien turns out to be a Sontaran Field Major Steyer, who is compiling a report on human physical and mental capabilities as a prelude to the invasion of Earth. The Doctor challenges Steyer to unarmed combat. The Sontaran agrees, but is quickly weakened in Earth's unfamiliar gravity. Harry, meanwhile, enters Steyer's ship and uses the Doctor's sonic screwdriver to remove the vital Terulian diode bypass transformer, so that when the alien returns there to revitalise himself, he is drained of all his energy and destroyed. The Doctor sends a message to the Sontaran fleet, warning them that without Steyer's report, they cannot invade. So there we are, the third story of Tom Baker's very first season of the Doctor, season 12, season series. They're all getting confused now. Everything's been reset again for the new Who, as it's coming to be known, I think, in my head. This is a bridging story between the Ark in Space and Genesis of the Daleks. So definitely it's kind of it comes across as a bridging story. It feels like a bridging story. Doesn't mean it's not necessarily bad, but I don't know. I think the brief that Bob Baker and Dave Martin have been given to us as a fill-in, they had set points they had to hit within that fill-in, and they had a set character to bring in the Sontaran. The premise is interesting. An alien doing some reconnaissance and doing experiments by luring in some colonists to come in so they could do some reconnaissance work and some reporting in regards to what humans are like, so the humans can then be subjugated and Earth can be subjugated as part of a Sontaran attack plan with the Ritans, which is very interesting, intriguing. I quite like that concept. The idea of the experiments is very much a body horror type thing, although obviously it's very much for children. You've got elements in there with where two of the crewmen are holding a big heavy bar that Steyer is making get heavier to stop crushing onto one of their colleagues' chests. You've got the human deprivation of the lack of water, the fear factor that Sarah gets involved with at one point. All these interesting little experiments is quite creepy. It's quite nicely done, nice body horror, and overall it's an interesting little premise, enjoyable little romp, but I do feel that maybe with some of the plot lines they could have tightened it a little bit. There's a bit more too much roaming. Obviously I understand that's the padding nature of the day, but this could quite easily work as a 45-minute if they put a little bit more character development in and a little less of the roaming the moors as they are, and put it together. You could have a quite easy 45-minute story romp that would work quite well in the modern series. And this one, it lends itself well to the two-parter in some respects, but in others it's kind of meh. It's kind of not quite there, and I think that's probably what's going to bring it down in my ratings later on when I go into that. Let's go into the characters, let's go into the actors involved. There's only 4 or 5 instances I'm going to mention here, because all the crewmen are kind of the same. They're all samey, they're just plot points. They don't really have much to them. I mean, Roth is okay. He's got a bit more to do because he's got post-traumatic stress. He's interesting. Terry Walsh is there as a stuntman. Zeke gets thrown off a cliff near the end of the first episode when he's being chased by the Sontaran's little machine that they use. Varal's interesting as a kind of betraying leader because he wanted to get their freedom, and Steyer's kind of got him into kind of reconnaissance and kind of spy mode, which is intriguing. And Glyn and Eric are kind of non-effectual. Don't get me wrong, the actors with what they've got do well, but there's not much to them, and I don't think it really works too well. The interesting thing I did notice, though, that some of these characters, and I know some of them aren't, but they all seem to me, and I don't know if this is just me, but they all seem to have an Australian/New Zealand accent to reinforce a kind of shorthand that they're colonists. I thought that was interesting. I don't know if that's the direction of the scripting by Dave Martin and Bob Baker, or whether that's a Rodney Bennett direction and his choice. but it's an interesting way of having a shorthand for such a short time frame to say they're colonists, they come from a different place, they're not from Nerva, which they think is a myth in this story. They're from a different colony that thrived while the Earth was burning up with the solar flares. It's an interesting story, and it's unique in regards to the direction as well, with having no interior scenes. It's all outside. It's all outside broadcast, and I'll get to the production bit in a minute. But it's interesting. Those most of the colonists have an Australian accent, which is interesting in itself. We then got the three main cast. We have Tom Baker playing the Fourth Doctor, of course. I get the sense he doesn't know what to do. I get the sense also the character of the Doctor that we're going to have in here. The fight scene with Star is quite fun, although it's Terry Walsh doing the fighting because Tom Baker had broken his collarbone. I think part of the reason, because Tom Baker was a bit more limited in his movement, they've actually kind of reassigned some of the words, some of the action pieces that the Doctor would have had to Harry. So the Doctor's a little bit more ineffectual and is using his brain and his thoughts more than anything else in this one, and it's going back more to kind of traditional kind of First Doctor, Second Doctor pondering and planning more than actually getting involved in the action that Tom Baker and of course John Pertwee have got into in later stories and later series. It's an interesting way of working things in that respect. I think Tom Baker does well with what he's got. He is slightly, as I say, restricted with his movements and what he does because of his collarbone being broken. You can tell that some of the scenes he had his collarbone broken because the coat is right over him, and it's juxtaposition right straight after him being more active and walking about. And it's interesting how that's all been filmed together, but it works enough to do what he needs to do, and you do get away with it. But yeah, it's a slightly muted performance, probably because of his injury and probably because of what they had to do to work around that for the story. You've then got Harry, played by Ian Marter. Harry takes the bulk of the action scenes here, kind of designed for what Harry was supposed to be, because they were thinking when they were trying to cast the Fourth Doctor, it might be an older actor. So Harry came in to have that kind of Ian Chesterton, Jamie, Stephen Taylor type role in there, the kind of action man role. And it's the fact that they've kind of used, I think they probably have used a few of the action sequences that the Doctor would have had in Harry so he can explore a bit more. And it actually works for me doing that. And I think it's quite cool the way it's been put across. And Ian Marter does well with the bits he has. I love the quip he has and the relationship they're trying to build with Sarah and him, the old girl factor, and Sarah keeps telling him off for saying that. It's obviously an affectionate way, and it's quite a nice relationship between the two of them, a nice relationship between the three of them. But I think it kind of immortalises Harry's characters developed through Sarah and the friendship he has with Sarah more than the friendship he has with the Doctor. There is a respect there, but I think Ian Marter does well as Harry, and that's a great little role here. We then have Elizabeth Sladen playing Sarah Jane Smith. I don't know what it is. I'm not sure if it's something to do with the way the character's been written, or they didn't have much for Sarah. She becomes a bit perils of Pauline here. She has a good little bit at the beginning of the first episode, end of the first episode, beginning of the second, when Steyer is interrogating her and Roth is killed by Steyer. And this whole murderer thing, and why do you make this disagreeable noise, that Steyer replies back to her. It's a nice little take on the fact the alien's going, why are you screaming? What are you doing? I don't understand that. I don't quite get that. I like that kind of alienness that comes through from that discussion. But overall, it's kind of like a damsel in distress situation. She doesn't get too much to do. She just try and help out at bits and pieces, and she is the focal point for Roth and his depressed, his post-traumatic stress elements that he has from being experimented and escaping from Steyer. So she's there as the human factor in regards to the emotional factor of this, but she doesn't get too much to do, which is actually a shame, because Elizabeth Sladen nails what she gets, but it would have been nice to have a little bit more. We then got Steyer, played by Kevin Lindsay. It's nice that they're repeating the character of more or less beat for beat. They have the links from the Time Warrior to help reinforce the clone aspect of the Sontarans. The Sontarans are a great creation. Kevin Lindsay is the progenitor of that, and really, I think if you're going to go back to the Sontarans and get back to the core reasons going forward in Doctor Who, you refer back to Links and Steyer and the way that Kevin Lindsay plays both those roles. Interesting enough, he is the only one that actually is, I think, properly foreign in here. I think he's American or Australian. He's one of the two. So it's interesting having him in there playing the alien. it's intriguing that kind of setup and the way that's worked. I think Star is just as good as Lynx. Doesn't get as much to do because it's a shorter story, and it's more of the intellectual side of the Sontarans we see in this story, which works well for me as well. I quite like it. And Robert Holmes's creation that was created in the Time Warrior is worked with quite well by Dave Martin and Bob Baker in this story, and I think it's quite nice the way the character is. He definitely is the baddie of the week. He works for that role, and utterly despicable, and I like the way it's portrayed. Production-wise, I think the direction by Roddy Bennett is pretty solid. The fact that you've got completely outside broadcast, completely no interior shots, completely on location. There is the downsides of location, of course. It was quite an overcast day most of the time, and then it was sunny, and they cut between scenes where it's sunny, then it's overcast. You can get away with it. It's Britain, but you can tell a bit more when things have been filmed than you would do in an indoor scene. So the lack of control there of the elements is showing a little bit because they're rushing a bit. Interesting choice of outside broadcast, especially when they're effectively in the middle of nowhere, although I'm sure there's a main road nearby from where they were filming. But effectively they're in the middle of nowhere, and having an outside broadcast recording set up in the mid-1970s is quite interesting at that point for such a show. Doctor Who does have a few more elements of outside broadcast until 1986, instead of having the 16mm filming and the studio interior shots. There's at least one example every season when it comes to Doctor Who up until the Key to Time season. So next season you have Seas of Doom, the following season you've got Image of Fendal, and then you have the Stones of Blood in the Key to Time season. So you do get one story every year where they do this, and this is where the first experiments of it comes from this story, and it must have worked because they kept utilising it, and it's quite nice to see. Overall, I think the direction works quite well. It's quite solid. The scripting is a bit lax though. It's a bit padded even for 2 episodes. If they could get down some of the more wandering shots a bit more, put a bit more character development in it, this certainly would work as a 45-minute new series episode and would flow well enough. It definitely feels like a filler. It seems like a filler. It's fun, but there's something quite missing from it, and that's why it's not going to give us such a high rating for me as it could do with everything else. The music by Dudley Simpson, very standard Dudley Simpson fare at this point. He's progressing from he's still got the kind of synthy vibes that he has from the Third Doctor's era, but it's starting to progress into the mini band feeling that you get from most of Tom Baker's era going forward. There is that kind of in between happening at the moment. The marimba with the do 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 do, that little leitmotif that comes throughout all the stories here until Sarah leaves is quite nice. I like that kind of leitmotif starting to come through here with some of the traits and that's happening in this. Overall, I think he doesn't overpower it. I think the music works quite well, and I think it's a nice story overall. Overall, though, it is a little bit take your brain out. I wouldn't necessarily put it as high up. It's not 4 TARDIS out of 5 for me. It's just not quite enough for 3.5 TARDIS. So it is a very high 3 TARDISes out of 5. Okay, let's see how that story stacks up with the rest of the stories that I've reviewed for the TV series so far, and also how it stacks up within all the other Tom Baker stories I've reviewed so far. So the Sontaran experiment joins Warrior's Gate, the Rebus operation, the Stones of Blood, the Power of Kroll, and the Armageddon Factor with 3 TARDISes out of 5. The best rated of the Tom Baker era stories is the Horror of Fang Rock with 4 TARDISes out of 5. Overall, there are 2 stories with 2.5 TARDIS out of 5. Sleep No More and Time Lash. And at the top there are still 6 stories with 4.5 TARDIS out of 5. They are The Happiness Patrol, Inferno, The Day of the Doctor, The Caves of Androzani, The Tomb of the Cybermen, and Dalek. That's it from me. Tell me what you think about the Sontaran experiment. Leave a comment down below. Do you like it? Leave a comment down below. Do you not like it? Leave a comment down below. If you like this video, please like it, share it with the hashtag teamstructor. If you like the channel as a whole, please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you know when a new video comes out. General rule, new video every Sunday at 4 PM GMT. If you want to help follow on socials, you can go to X, formerly Twitter, you can go to Instagram, you can go to Facebook, you can go to the YouTube community tab, and you can also go to Patreon. All you need to do is search for the term Deanstructor and all those sites, and you'll be able to find the pages. that's it from me. Thank you very much, guys, for watching, as always, as I mentioned. Next time is Wednesday at 6 p.m. GMT. We have the Christmas review. It's the end of time this time, guys. Hopefully you can join me for that. And Sunday, we have the Kidstructor for Father Christmas. So that's going to be a lot of fun, and I've had a lot of laughs editing it more recently. Until then, guys, thanks so much, guys, for watching. And you know what? I will see you later.